Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Mesa City Council study session for March the 18th. All of our council is present. The first item on our agenda for this meeting is to review the agenda for tonight's council meeting. So council, if you could please take a look at that document. Currently, there is nothing off of the consent agenda, but I know Mr. Thompson has at least one item to come off. Any questions? We didn't have a chance to meet on Thursday. Any questions or concerns with anything on this agenda, council? Okay, Mr. Thompson?
Mayor, I'm going to ask that item 6C be pulled from consent agenda. I'm going to support this agenda item. I know there's been some discussion between staff and our P&Z as well, and it's on consent for denial, but I support this project. We've met for probably a good 8 to 9 months on this project with staff working through some issues. It's a mid-block, very small. It's only 9 acres. There's not a lot of potential, I think, in that location for office or retail or something of that nature. I just don't know what another use, good use of that would be. It's directly across the street from a school on the Gilbert side and right up against a storage facility. And so not ideal project, but I think that this project fits that location. We've been working again with the developers trying to make sure that this becomes a sustainable project for years to come and doesn't degrade the area and so forth. So I think they're doing their part, and so therefore I will be supporting this project.
Now, I think it's on the consent agenda for introduction. Would you like to leave it on the consent agenda for introduction so that we can then have the hearing on the 1st of April?
Well, it's on the consent for denial, though. Correct?
No.
Mayor and council, it's just for introduction for that. So it's just for introduction. And then in 2 weeks of the next council meeting, if it were to stay on the consent agenda, then we add that language that we usually bold that says that a vote for this would be for denial.
Okay.
So I think
Well, if this is only for introduction,
Right.
then that's fine.
Leave it on consent,
We can leave it
yeah.
on consent.
Okay, great. And speaking of that, though, for the several of the reasons you just identified, I do plan on, I support leaving it on the consent agenda for introduction on the 1st of April. I expect that I will not be supporting the project for some of the reasons you identified. The fact that planning and zoning and staff have both recommended denial, and I don't think it's consistent with what we want to do out there. But that's a great discussion that we can have on the 1st of April. Yes, Jeremy.
Is now the time for staff to discuss why they're denying it, or should we wait until after?
We can do it now.
I would love to, I have no idea.
So I
the
think there's
background.
multiple factors in that you want to give from the planning perspective, and I think economic development is also weighed in on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, members of City Council. So the reason why staff is recommending denial is specifically based on the future land use or the land use character designation on the property, which is mixed use and employment. And reading the general plan, so the basic purpose of the mixed use employment is basically to encourage employment uses. And although residential are sometimes allowed in that general plan character area, residential is not a primary use, so allowing any residential use to set a pace for development has a higher tendency to derail the intent and purpose of that general plan character area designation. And looking at the general plan, so basically the mixed-use employment normally consists of large tracts of land, approximately 25 acres, that is expected to be developed in unison. So it's expected to be developed comprehensively. We recognize that this is only 9 acres. However, because this will set a tone or set a pace for the development of the area, we obviously have reservations. We want to see other uses going into that area that will fit specifically to the primary purpose of the general character. And after that, if there is any residential development, at least that will fit into what has already been developed. And so that's why we're recommending denial for the project.
And then Mayor and Council, we've seen this product and other parts of the city where we actually have approved this product. I think over in the Lehigh area, and then, Guadalupe and Haas. So this is a rental property, this is a rental product, and I think that has driven our concern about setting the tone, as you're saying, for the kind of development on Power Road. And then, Bill, you wanted to weigh in also on the...
From an employment perspective, I think this is, as the region's starting to finally develop and you're starting to see employment in the Elliott Corridor and out on the to Power Road, to start with a residential development really sets the wrong message for some of the other employers in that region as well. There is a tremendous amount, I think, of interest in not just Elliott, but up and down Power Road. And the other thing to keep in mind is Gateway, and that there's a Gateway strategic plan. And I don't know whether you addressed it in your planning perspective, but employment is a key piece of that, and we're really protecting that airport from that residential piece as well. And again, that whole corridor feeds into Gateway, that Power Road, and feeds into it. So I think those are a couple of things that we continue to look at.
So, I'm sorry, Jeremy, thank you. Mr. Luna, did you have a question?
Yes, it was on item 6B.
Oh, okay. But maybe before
Yeah,
we leave this
yeah.
item, is there any other questions on the zoning case?
Well, I was going to say, the applicants in the audience, if they would like an opportunity to speak. they
That'd be
can.
fine, but again, the question today is, are we going to have a hearing on April the 1st? And so we can get into it as detailed as you want to today, but ultimately, we're going to do this again on the 1st of April. So I'm happy to have, if the applicant would like to come, I'm not trying to keep them from coming up, but. Okay, I'm sorry. So please come up.
Just for my,
Right.
as I've read through this, the parcels just south, the LC and the RS 43, they're not developed yet, correct? They're vacant parcels?
That's correct.
Okay. What's the acreage of that? Do you remember?
I don't, no,
The
sorry.
project or the property to
No.
the south?
Just the property to the
Okay.
south. Let's identify.
Mr. Ray, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Brendan Ray, 702 East Osborne. I certainly don't want to, and I'm mindful and appreciative of the brief discussion that we've had tonight, recognizing that it's only introduction and that I'm sure we'll have a further discussion as we continue down the road. I think, and the thing that I would leave you with in the brief time that I will speak right now, is that I think, kind of as Councilmember Thompson has alluded to, there are a number of challenges that make it unique that, as Mr. Bill Jebziniak and I spoke today about things, we have a difference of opinion, and it's not for a lack of effort, not for a lack of trying. I do not believe, and for details that I will get into later, I believe that this is a good use for this property. I don't believe that it's going to set a negative trend and be the straw that all of a sudden breaks the camel's back as it relates to the good things the city is doing, that economic development is doing, that Councilmember Thompson is doing as it relates to the Power and Elliott Road corridors. It's kind of just a unique site that it's at the very edge of the mixed-use activity employment designation, transitioning to neighborhood suburban on the north. And at least from my perspective, it's consistent with good planning principles to have this type of a transition use. I'll get into it later, but I don't believe that this is going to be a detriment to the Gateway Airport, nor the strategic plan of the Gateway Airport and as they go. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I tried to keep my comments brief, Mayor, recognizing that we're going to have a full discussion, hopefully in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ray?
No, but I have one more question.
Sure.
Moving on. My question is for Jim. Jim, when would it be appropriate for us not to vote for an introductory, what we're talking about doing today? In what instance would we vote against that? I mean, because it sounds, most of the time we always say, well, this is just to introduce it, so let's vote yes for it anyways. In what instances would we vote no on something if it was just to introduce something?
Mayor and Councilmember Whitaker, in the history, I don't believe there's ever been an ordinance that has that has not been introduced that has sought introduction once it's on the agenda. So I'm not sure there has ever been one that has been voted down by council for introduction. It's a procedural mechanism. It's simply, and it was added to the charter as an additional notice. Instead of just having 24 hours notice before something is approved by ordinance, there's an introduction process so that there's at least a 1-week process. And so it is just simply a procedural manner of giving notice to the public that we're going to hold the hearing on this at the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
So this will remain on the consent agenda, correct? And we'll look forward to the hearing on the 1st of April. Any other questions regarding the agenda for tonight?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Luna.
Bill? So we're talking about 6B. We're expanding DiaSouth, so that's additional economic development for the city of Mesa, and that's item 6B. And so maybe you could speak onto it real quickly.
Under item, I'm sorry, Councilman.
6B, DiaSouth. Expansion of DiaSouth.
DiaSouth.
Oh,
Yes, yes, we do. It just,
Yeah, yeah.
I had to remember which item
It's
on the
DiaSouth,
agenda
right?
it was. So DiaSouth Special Devices, I think their expansion on Virginia Street is a great win because they've expanded several times now over the last few years. And I think that growth is just perfect for what they're doing. Again, they're in that airbag industry, and that growth, again, Special Devices used to be down at the end of the street. Here we about, I don't know, 4 years ago, when they built the building, and now we're already in expansion mode. And hopefully we'll get a big sign up on the highway as well to announce that they're located there and expanding as well.
Okay,
It's a
great.
good win.
It's a good win for the city of Mesa District 5. Thank you.
Yes, it will. Thank you.
Right, STI is a big employer, big, very sophisticated company. That's good to see them expanding. Council, any other questions regarding tonight's agenda? If there are none, the next item on our agenda for this meeting is item 2, to hear reports on meetings and conferences attended. I know we've all been busy the last couple of weeks. Mr. Luna?
Yes, a lot of us just returned from the National League of Cities, where we attended several meetings on trying to, one of their big promotions is to build infrastructure throughout the United States, and certainly that's a concern of us. And so Rebuild With Us is a model that they're working with. I'm on the executive board and serve on the board of directors of the National League of Cities. It's a great opportunity to meet colleagues from throughout the United States, get ideas of what's good, and try to bring them back to the city of Mesa. Also attended the HELO, Hispanic Elected Local Officials meeting. I'm first vice president of that group, and trying again to move our cities forward. And I had a good time with my colleagues here.
Great, thank you. Other comments? Mr. Thompson?
I, along with my colleagues, we also spent last Wednesday on the Hill meeting with our congressional delegates. And one of the things that I was able to talk about was the homeless issue and what's facing us here in Mesa. But separate from that, I also was able to meet with the Department of Labor in a roundtable discussion and really trying to talk about how to take those transferable skills from our military vets that are exiting military service and getting the certifications or the federal licenses in place so that they can become employable straight out of the military. For an example, if you have a person that's in the Army that's been working on the Apache helicopter for their entire military career, why can't they come out of the military and be employable right away by Boeing instead of having to go through the federal requirements of getting an A&P license? And so trying to speed that process. And the good news is that there's movement. The bad news is it is very, very slow because of the bureaucracy. So it's something that we as a council can continue to push on because I think that's also transferable not only to our military veterans, but for others as well.
If I could.
Yes, Mr. Freeman.
So along with my colleagues, I got the opportunity to represent you for a housing committee meeting.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. And the discussion was primarily built around affordable housing and versus workforce housing, which I promoted in our community that we needed more workforce housing and that our affordable housing, whether it's adequate or inadequate, needs to be spread throughout our community. So we have the light rail to leverage that. So we talked about that, and there's a lot of good discussion on that. Also attending breakout sessions on opioids and PTSD for public safety personnel, and I sit on that committee and pushing legislation to help our public safety personnel get some type of health measures within their, for their employers to help them get the necessary help if they need. So that was really a great thing. And fortunately in Arizona, we have legislation on PTSD for our public safety, but you'll be surprised how many other states don't have that. So we talked about that and got to, Councilmember Thompson and I attended one of his sessions, and I learned a lot from that as well. So thank you. It was a great time.
Great, thank you. Jen?
I didn't know if we're going around with you.
Okay.
Okay, all right. This is the first time I was attending the National League of Cities conference, and it was very empowering, very exciting of all the things that are going on nationally to support our cities. One of the things I did was make an appointment with the SBA and discuss with them ways that we can support entrepreneurship and startups right here in our area, especially in this massive redevelopment. We want to make sure we have all opportunities to our population of small businesses to expand their business and startup, especially around the innovation district and what we're trying to get growing that district right here in downtown. So there's a lot of positive things. I'll be making some steps, and so that's more evident. And working also with East Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, doing a summit in May in providing capital to our small businesses. In addition, I just wanted to point out there was a lot of discussion about the opioid epidemic, and coming up next month in April, there is a National Take Back Day, and there will be opportunities for our residents to, which are ever existing, but there'll be a big campaign and promotion about taking all the drugs that we have sitting in our cabinets from various doctor's appointments and disposing of those at our police stations, and how we can do that in a responsible way so that it's not left in hands that can, into children and to people who are reselling or in addiction status, and being able to really do our part as citizens to reduce the overdose and addiction. Oh, yes. And the city of Mesa was awarded for their Facebook in Espanol. We were recognized in the diversity breakfast at the National League of Cities. So that is, of all the cities represented, I think there's like 2,000 cities represented, that we were able to get that award. So that's something to be proud of. And I did check out the Facebook, and it is a great reference point for our citizens. So I'm very proud of that.
Yes.
Yeah, so in addition, I was part of a panel representing the city of Mesa on the work that we've done on the census, the upcoming census next year. And so that, put, I think, Mesa on the map. I think the mayor as well, at one of his conferences, highlighted the work that we're doing on census. So that was an important step for us. Talked to Census Bureau staff as well of our concerns and making sure, we get everybody counted next year, so.
Yes, thank you for your good work in chairing our Complete Count Committee, Mr. Heredia.
Do you want to mention Boeing?
Yes, let me add that to my list of things we're going to talk about. So Mr. Luna and I, just a couple of days ago, attended a ceremony at Boeing where delivering the first round of helicopters to the nation of Qatar. Very big deal for Boeing, and we were honored to be there representing the city. But over, I think, about 24 Apache helicopter, 24. So this is, that's millions of dollars to our economy and a lot of great jobs in the city of Mesa. We were happy to celebrate the delivery of those, the first few of those helicopters. Mr. Heredia mentioned the census issue. I unfortunately was not with my colleagues at National League of Cities because I had a conflicting conference, the U.S. Conference of Mayors that coincided with South by Southwest in Austin. And I thought that was just much like your experience, mine was very positive. Had a lot of great things that I learned and discussed there. Believe it or not, we're not the only city in the country dealing with the scooter situation. So I was involved in a lot of panels and study sessions, learning what other cities are doing on the scooter issue. I was the mayor on a large panel at South by Southwest discussing the census situation and was proud to report how important it is to us and what we're doing to encourage a complete count in the city of Mesa. One of my assignments at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, in addition to being a trustee, is to co-chair the Immigration Task Force. And so I had a great opportunity to meet with other border mayors, particularly the mayors from El Paso and Brownsville. I think many in our city know that we are facing a real humanitarian crisis involving Central American asylum seekers that are being released by the hundreds into our community in Phoenix every day. And it's putting a real strain on our faith community and our human service agencies who have been asked by ICE and HHS to play a role in facilitating, to pick up the slack where they can't handle this. So that's very much an issue that is confronting a lot of good people here in our community, and I was pleased to be a part of trying to find a solution to that situation. And I know the cities of Phoenix and Tucson were very involved in some real serious discussions with them as to what we can do to facilitate and convene stakeholders to help address that situation as well. So I think we've all been pretty busy the last couple of weeks, but it's good to be back and tasked with trying to make some improvements here locally. Council, anything else that you'd like to share under this agenda item? Yes, Jeremy.
I have one comment on the immigration issue that you spoke on. I know that a few of the local churches in Mesa have reached out and they're having issues where and just a reminder, these aren't what some people have called illegal immigrants. These are people who are actually going through the asylum process, and they need transportation to meet their sponsors that can be located anywhere around the country. So I know that the churches have reached out and asked for support in regards to transportation, temporary 2 to 3 day housing on the weekends. And I believe those were the two big asks from the church. So if anybody wants to volunteer, there's definitely some opportunities there.
Thank you. Mr. Luna reminded me as well, he and I last night attended a conference at the Islamic Center in Northeast Phoenix, just to express our condolences and our solidarity with the communities that are mourning the terrorist attack that occurred in New Zealand. We were joined there by several members of the congressional delegation and other mayors and public safety officials. So we were pleased to represent the city at that event last night. Anything else, council? All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda for this meeting is scheduling of future meetings and general information. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. We will have a study session this Thursday, March 21st. We have several items on the agenda, including some executive session items. So we'll have a full morning of meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.